I don't know whether you remember Douglas Carswell. I don't suppose he's somebody who clings to the mind, but a man with more twists than a plot-heavy soap opera. Formerly a Conservative MP, he made headlines in 2014 by defecting to UKIP. He then became UKIP's first elected MP, only to part ways with the party in 2017. A restless spirit. Carswell has a knack for jumping ship right as it's sinking, but not before declaring it was seaworthy. In his recent piece on Sue Gray's sacking, Carswell argues that Starmer's bold move is about as likely to stabilise his government as a tissue paper umbrella in a British downpour. According to Carswell, Gray's departure, forced by Starmer's apparent need to get a grip, will do nothing to address the systemic chaos that swirls around number 10. The sacking of Sue Gray, he claims, is similar to rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. That old image. Well, because something is an old image doesn't necessarily mean that it's still useless. It's a very useful image. And this won't be the first time a political sacking has been sold as a solution to a deeper problem. Remember when Boris Johnson threw Dominic Cummings out of the door? That manoeuvre was supposed to herald a new era of order and decorum. Instead, it turned out that removing Cummings didn't make the engine purr. It just left Johnson fumbling for someone else to blame, fumbling on the sofa. Well, we know where that went. Carswell points to the absurdity of the Civil Service Code, that sacred doctrine which supposedly keeps ministers in line. In his view, it mostly ensures that mandarins wield power with impunity, and ministers who arrive brimming with plans quickly realise that they're more figureheads than figures of authority, and they jab at levers and press buttons only to find the machinery jammed by the invisible hands in Whitehall, and that is the problem. Carswell, in his ever-present reformist zeal, had once drafted a blueprint for shaking things up. He suggested forming a new department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, a grand amalgamation of Downing Street, the Cabinet Office, and parts of the Treasury. Imagine, he mused, a structure where the Prime Minister actually had the clout to implement policy or appoint competent staff and generally do more than simply cut ribbons. Of course, Boris Johnson initially endorsed such reformist vigour until he got comfortable in the top job. COVID arrived, the machinery of state took over, and any talk of reform evaporated like a promise in an election year. Carswell sees this as a broader pattern. Conservative governments keep winning elections, but somehow Britain ends up with centrist policies that wouldn't make a true Tory's heart race at all. Well, you know, maybe he's going to start endorsing Kemi Badenoch, but I think what we've got now is Labour policies that aren't going to change anything, because they are similarly going to be constrained by the mechanics of power. In Carswell's eyes, without a radical overhaul, Starmer's administration is destined to flounder as badly as Johnson's. Swapping out aides and advisers won't cure the malaise. What's needed is a full-scale confrontation with the civil service. I mean, in that, he's very much a Rees-Moggian, isn't he? A Thatcher-esque showdown with the mandarins. Until that happens, Sue Gray's dismissal will remain a footnote in a saga of perennial dysfunction, another episode in the long-running drama of Westminster's perpetual power struggles. But there is an alternative, and the alternative is to anticipate what the civil service are happy doing, and to then engineer policies around the civil service process. It shouldn't be so difficult to work out what the civil service does. It's just a machine. It's just a system. And to, in a sense, subvert that system is surely not an impossibility. That is really all Carswell is suggesting. What Carswell is suggesting is to invent another system. You need to subvert that. All you need to do is to be clever enough to work out how to use the civil service in the best way to get what you want. And that requires observation. And the problem with present-day ministerial appointments is that they don't observe. They're too busy flapping around, pontificating, to actually sit back and observe how things work. Because if you observe how things work, you can effect change.